Welcome to your daily devotional with me, PMV. We're in a mini series going through the first half of the book of James as we take a brief break from our study in the book of Revelation. We left off at James chapter 1, verse 19, and we're going to go through verse 27. Verse 19 says, "So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God." What does he mean by the "so then"? Well, he's saying right before that, verse 18, he's talking about how God brought us forth by his will. And because of who we are and what God has done and how he has changed us, in light of that, then we are to be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. Often our wrath and our anger has nothing to do with righteousness or goodness. It has everything to do with us being irritated. And it can be sinful. We just have this outburst of wrath that is directed towards others that are bothering us. And James is saying, look, you need to get that under control and submit that to the Lord and allow the righteousness of God to come through in your life. Verse 21, he says, "Therefore lay aside filthiness and the overflow of wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word." Set these things aside and take up something with meekness, in a sense, with humility. Receive God's word. Take it up, which is able to save your souls. When Jesus was praying his high priestly prayer in John 17, one of the things he prayed for is that he said, "Father, sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth." One of the things that we need to do is be taking God's word in. That's why I do this daily devotional, to encourage people to take God's word into their heart. And God's word will change us, will transform us as we receive it, cling to it, believe it. As we trust God, he will change us through the power of his word in us. So what James is saying is, because of who God has made you to be, lay aside these other behaviors, take up God's word, and allow it to transform you. Take it deep into your heart, meditate on it, and allow the Spirit of God to do his work in your life. Verse 22, "But be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves." That's where real transformation takes place. It's not just to take it in for our own knowledge or our own sake, but then to live it out, to see it worked out in our lives. He says, "For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he's like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he was." He's saying to look into God's word, and to say, "Oh, that's great, that's good," and then to not do it is as foolish as someone who goes to a mirror, looks at it, and as they walk away go, "Now what did I look like?" Saying it's foolish. No, don't do that. Then he says, verse 25, "But he who looks into the perfect law of liberty." And that's so true. When we obey God's word, it brings freedom to our life. God's word is not a set of do's and don'ts, but it is about a relationship with him and learning what it means to walk in that relationship with him. And that brings freedom. The perfect law of liberty, and continues in it, and is not a forgetful hearer. So who looks into it, continues in it, is not forgetful, but a doer of the work, putting it into practice, this one will be blessed in what he does. Receive it, continue on it, do it, and you will know the fruit that comes through obedience to God's word. You will know God's blessings on your life. "If anyone among you thinks he's religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his own heart, this one's religion is useless." Again, he was talking about laying aside wrath and filthiness, and that probably had to do with speech. And so he's kind of coming back to that in sort of an inclusio here, a bookend. And he's saying, look, if you really think you're walking with God, but you don't have a wrangle on your tongue, if that's not bridled, if you haven't brought that in, you need to check your heart, because out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. "If anyone among you thinks he's religious and does not bridle his tongue, he deceives his own heart." You're not as far along as you think you are. This one's religion is useless. That's pretty strong. "Pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father." True Christianity, walking with God, knowing him, is this: to visit orphans and widows in their trouble and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. Now, there's a long history between this orphans and widows. This goes back to the Old Testament, where as the people of God had been in captivity and God delivered them from captivity, he looked at them and said, now, as you were once vulnerable and I delivered you and made you strong, you need to take care of the vulnerable in your midst. And that is how your faith is put into practice, that you don't abuse those who are weak around you, but you do what you can to lift them up, to encourage them, to strengthen them, to take care of them as God takes care of you. And so that is an outworking of your relationship with God. It's not legalism. It's not just a social gospel. Do these good things and you'll be saved. No, it all comes back to a relationship that based on how God has treated you, so you are to treat one another, especially the vulnerable. And then he says, and to keep oneself unspotted from the world. God said in the Old Testament and in the New, be holy for I am holy. To keep oneself unspotted from the world. There is a sense of personal responsibility here. Now, it's only possible through the power of God's Spirit in us, but it is an act of faith, an act of being a doer of the word where we say, I'm going to do those things that I know are pleasing to God and trust Him to keep me from being spotted by the world, being stained by the world. I want to walk in holiness, and by faith, I take the steps to do so. I trust God to give me the strength I need day by day to obey Him. Thanks for joining me today. For more information, go to pnvministries.org. As always, I hope you have a great day.